Hello, hello. My name is Liam Jackson, student ID 21007735. And today, coming to you with the topic that is a little bit close to home for me. However, it's one that I think that needs to be discussed. Bad media. High art versus low art, highbrow, lowbrow, however you want to put it. Anyway, bad media. What I would just say is a broad term that can be used for multiple or multitude of reasons. For describing something that has a crude story morale or that sends a concerning message to the audience. Now, I'm not just talking about movies or books, but simply an image or meme is considered media. Also, if I am throwing around the term bad media, what does that say about the piece in question? Is bad media about a bad message or poor planning or writing? The execution of it. Is that what determines it? Before I go off into depth on that, what I'm defending here today is for the reputation of a classic anime, Sword Art Online, or otherwise known as SAO. I'll be referring to it as SAO for the rest of this recording. No, I'm defending it on how people or deemed this to be unbearable to watch after the first season. This is a review that follows from Rotten Tomato. Only the first half of the show is enjoyable to watch, but once you get to the first, or once you get past the first arc, it becomes exponentially harder to watch. Included scenes, in brackets, like the tentacle scene with the heroine, close bracket, that makes me want to stop the show entirely. The only reason I'm able to finish this show is because I never leave a show hanging, but this show almost made me. I also considered it to be one of the worst anime series I have ever watched. And that is a 2 out of 5-star review from Sebastian D off Rotten Tomatoes. You see, Sebastian isn't alone in this. For instance, I'm going to link a YouTube video about how did SAO become so bad from a YouTuber called Mother's Basement who reviews anime, well, for his living, to be honest. And this will go into a little bit more in depth in terms of how people have come to view this as being bad. And yes, this scene here is mentioned. I agree with Sebastian here. I almost couldn't bring myself to rewatch it, and often I have skipped this part and the ending scene as well. But I still have a fondness for the anime, which I'll go into depth of later. I'll go into depth later of why. I believe that this controversial anime doesn't deserve the title of bad media. Off the bat, I'm going to go into a hot take about, yet again, bringing it back to, does media have to be considered large or viewed enough to be influential? This is something that I personally don't see. For clarification, I believe that media has to have a decent viewing or fellowship for it to be, I guess, formatted as something that can be seen as high or lowbrow media. But also, just because it doesn't gain popularity at the start or have enough traction from its posting or whenever it reaches its end of its viewed life, you could say, and then it just disappears, I believe it then moves into kind of a moral gray area where it's just a handful of people thinking that their opinion is the end all when no one is opposing them. Is opposition the reason why media has the terms of bad or good, or high and lowbrow, you could say? Well, yes. There has always been disagreement in philosophy, actually, between the two different forms of thinking around judgment since the 17th century, where these were popularized. Rationalism is the first term, is where somebody who judges a piece of media based on principles and concepts. What we see is fact. There is nothing more on this. We have judged it rationally to our world's standards and deemed it to be acceptable or not. However, there is one key thing wrong with this outlook of, are we all the same? In the great words of Kiwi ad, you're dreaming, mate. Empiricism is another thought or judgment process brought forward by David Hume that I would like to bring forward, well, to you. Considered to be on the other side of judgment, the thought that ideas and knowledge develop in our minds as a result of sensory stimulation or experiences that we've had. I mean, this could lead onto essentially one another canceling out another, saying that um, something has been made rational beforehand due to our experience, you know. However, we could also have an already inbuilt knowledge of what is rational and what is not. So this is yet again almost like a step up versus, nature versus nurture argument. Besides the point, this isn't what I'm discussing today. After setting the stage of judgment and the core principles of what is bad media, or how that is determined, I now feel comfortable introducing you back to 2012, where an anime that has been, well, that was bound to make a name for itself was released, SAO. Ask anyone who watches anime regularly. They would have heard of this animation. For short context and predisposition, the story is set in Japan 2022. Technology has gone so far to allow virtual full dives. So your mind is essentially in a virtual landscape which you have full control over to what the programmer has given you. This story follows Kirito and Asuna as they navigate through a game they full dived into that has trapped them, and if they die in the game, they die in real life. As you can see, it is set up to create multiple moral conflicts within the game, and around the 10th to 12th episode, this is where it would be considered, I guess, to be bad media. Even as Kirito being the main male character, we can see a balance to some degree with everyone else that interacts with him. This is key in point to Asuna, who is the love interest and also the sub-main character. The thing is, we're shown multiple times how much of a badass she is. She's got some power in the game. This is not accounted for in one of the final battles of season one, where the only way she is used, yes, I used the term used, because this is all she's being seen as now, is that she died for Kirito as he was about to lose a key fight. Then this brings him to be more powerful, but a broken state. As he then beats the boss and beats the game, the pattern of the female character being used as a plot device further as male protagonist is used in both the later half of the first season, where in this instance, Asuna is starting to be sexually abused, which then causes Kirito to break the game's laws and beat the big bad. Thing is that this anime has great animation. It's well drawn, has decent quality for being released in 2012, so the physical execution is great, but the plot and character treatment is half baked and flawed. As this style of, oh no, I need someone to come save me because I'm emotionally weak, not physically, but emotionally, therefore needy hero, is repeated in the second season as well, with a different character instead of Asuna. 48 episodes from these two seasons has created a low for people over how this has been executed. However, season 3 came along, and it starts off with a change of pace where Kirito is essentially bedridden due to being poisoned. And who does this leave but the other family he has of the strong sub main characters to come in and protect him? Now, in wording this, this sounds like they're only making use of their strength now as the MC's in trouble. And this would be true if they just had it for a couple of episodes until he's, fit as a fiddle again. However, this style goes on for the whole season with 24 episodes of female domination kicking straight ass. This season brought back a lot of fans to this anime, and it's now redeemed its poor character development in the place of almost saying, "We're sorry for how we mistreated you, so here's the spotlight." Now, to put a little bit of context, in terms of this character development, they literally, I guess, built a character from the ground up. You're introduced to this character called Alice. And Alice is an artificial AI that is interacting with all these different, characters and everything like that. And so essentially, we literally see Alice go from nothing to something. Sure, I gotta say that there is still the bad trope of where she ends up by getting feelings for Kirito, as she's the one who ends up being tasked to protect him. However, the gratification that I got from seeing strong female leads now defending a broken hurt Kirito it was still great. Still very great. What I'm trying to say in the end of all this is that sure, animation can be considered to have liberation in laws of the world that they make as its animation. Yet, when it links close to our world principles, this is where people feel justified accusing it of bad or poor media in either art form or story, which is the case with SAO. You know, this is a completely different world to our own, but yet for me, this bad piece of media is no longer bad. I believe that media can and does redeem itself like how SAO has done, as it's now a show that's a lot more progressive storyline and has character development like you wouldn't believe. And this is why I believe SAO isn't a bad piece of media. Thank you very much for listening. Please feel free to have a look at some of the references in terms of research. I gotta definitely thank on Britannica for this, but also as well have a look at some of the photos of some of the art that I've added in there from SAO. This is from concept art and also as well proper animation and fan art that's come from it as well. Because even though that this piece has been controversial, it's still inspired a lot. And I hope you give it a listen to or watch. Anyway, thank you for listening. Bye bye.